In this series, we're growing a Robinhood account from $0 all the way to 1 million. And I'm showing you every step of the way how I get there. So today in the account, we did close at $18,221.75. We were up $667.40 on the day. And that was really driven by the fact that NIO, one of our largest positions in the account, this is a Chinese EV manufacturer, it had an 11% day, and it's absolutely been on a crazy tear the last month. It's been up 47%. So we were down on this position. It's starting to recover, and that was the main driver of today's gain. I'm going to give you a rundown of the current positions we have, but then I'm going to hop into the charts, also talk a bit about Unity Software. I talked about that stock a lot in the last video and give you an update there. I actually did take a lot of profit today. Just took risk out of the account because I saw that it was starting to break below a key level. So that's why we have $4,300 in buying power now. I sold out of that position for like over 500% on some of these contracts. But looking at the account, we are bullish right now on Apple. Apple is one of our largest bets short term that we're taking in the account. We have $1,800. These are all in spread and naked calls. We do have about $400 on weekly call spreads that ideally we need to make Apple move to over $220 by Friday. So I might actually take profit on these a little bit sooner because it is a lot of risk. That's a decent size for this week. And hopefully with the news that we just saw with Trump and Japan striking a trade deal where they're going to pay 15% tariffs and invest $550 billion into the U.S. Hopefully that is enough to at least give us a green day tomorrow, Wednesday, the 23rd, to see Apple push a bit more, and then we can exit at least these shorter dates with a profit. And then, of course, we are taking dates over the earnings date, which is on July 31st. So really bullish on Apple. I do think Apple is going to go to all-time highs at some point this year. So it is a good position if you are looking just to play shares or even longer dated call options. I think those are all solid. Disney, we're kind of dead on this position right now. It has to make a move by Friday. I think I'm just going to hold and see if it can actually do that and push over 124. I think it's around 121 right now. And then Tesla, I'm also really bullish on. I do think that Tesla, it does have earnings tomorrow. It could go well. We're up 63% on these spreads. We actually do better for holding this position the longer, closer to expiration, because the current price is actually trading $8 over our highest strike. So we intend to sell these before earnings just to take the risk out, because we don't want to take the coin flip of whether Tesla will either go up or down tomorrow. But I might buy back into Tesla because I am very bullish with everything that Elon is talking about doing with the business, trying to merge all of his companies into one. I think that would be seen as a really positive catalyst for a move to over $400 on Tesla this year. Then Unity, I'll talk a bit more about that. We have a bunch of just like YOLO small dollar amounts, about like $250 to see if Unity can have a squeeze, and that's really dependent on Roaring Kitty tweeting. Then we did enter into more Alibaba spreads. I have this position. It's one of larger positions in my main portfolio, and I think that Alibaba can continue to push higher now that China and Trump are best friends again. And that was kind of the same thing with his term in the first time around. Match, I wish I would have bought more of these call contracts. I was really bullish on it, just looking at it like, God, I think this is going to break out. But we're up 47% on those. That's just like a small little side bet. And then Webull. Webull has been a position that we've been talking about for like 2 weeks now. They did have dilution news, and we actually just kept buying the dip on it, and now we're up 190% on those. I think it's up over 5% after hours, so hopefully the momentum can continue, and I'll show you a bit more of where I think that's headed on the chart. And then we are in some SMCI as well as Zeta. Zeta has taken a really long period of time. It's just kind of burning on these contracts. We do have $1,100, so this is a pretty sizable position. We are down 6%. I am hoping to see a larger move before earnings in the second week of August. So I think Zeta is also a stock to watch here. But let's just hop right into the charts because, a lot is going on right now in the market. It is kind of frothy. Everything has run up. People are assuming that there's going to be a pullback. There hasn't been one yet. We've just seen price continue to push higher and higher and higher. And the market does this. It's natural. It likes to go to extremes. Usually when people are starting to turn bearish because they think things are maybe running too hot, they're overheating, it takes a little bit longer for it to actually play out. And I think that's kind of where we're at with this stage. We had like crypto run. There's a lot of rotation. Like Nvidia went up to 170. It hit new highs. Microsoft has been on a crazy run. Tesla and Apple are lagging behind. Amazon and Google are now getting close within striking distance of a few percentage points to new highs. Broadcom made new highs. Netflix made new highs. It had earnings, but now it's starting to, people are starting to take profit, right? So I think the market is going to continue to push a bit more beyond what people assume. What I'm really looking for is VIX. I think when the volatility index drops below 15, then it's really starting to get close to that edge where I think we are going to have a bit of a pullback in the market. I don't think it's going to be like a large correction for any means, but there will be another narrative, and it could be around like September time. Maybe they're going to shut down the government again. That's going to cause some volatility. I think there will be a profit-taking moment, but really what we're looking for is like maybe a spike to new highs and then a retracement after that, maybe back down to like the low 600s is probably what I'd be thinking, or like a retest of the 613 level on SPY, because usually when you have a breakout of new highs, price will push higher. There's a lot of momentum and then there's profit taking and we come back and retest that high. If we hold that 613 level, then we'll bounce and continue to the upside. If we break below that, then of course we could see a move bit lower, and there's all these different gaps that we've had moving up through this whole move, right? We have gap, and it's possible that we could come back down and start testing some of these other levels, probably in middle to late August or even early September. That's always a time in the year to be a bit more cautious. So that's what I'm looking at for on the overall market. Now, let's just get right into Unity. We'll start here. Unity, this one is really interesting just because of Roaring Kitty. He might be in this stock. There's $73 million on the 30 calls for January, and they have not sold. They have not moved. I think it's him. I think that's his position. I think at some point he's going to end up tweeting, posting his position, and showing that he's the whale in this stock, and that's going to cause a massive reaction to the upside. I think once he tweets, this stock could go parabolic. In 1 to 2 days, it would easily squeeze over 100%, and just at current prices, that would be around $70 per share. Now, from a technical perspective, the reason why I sold out of this position a bit today and took a lot of risk off for all the early dates that I have in the account is because we have somewhat of this broadening wedge that was forming over the long term. And we actually broke above that and pushed higher, and this 35.58 level was a key level of resistance. But we flipped that area to support for a period of time. But unfortunately, we were not able to hold that level, and we eventually broke that down today. And that's bearish. If there was no Roaring Kitty in this stock, I would actually be shorting this position. I'd be buying puts, and this would likely come back down to this 31.35 level and even potentially fill this gap down to around $30 and even back to this 28.54 level. So right now, from a technical perspective, Unity is in a bearish position. I'm just keeping my eye on it. The problem is like I want exposure because Roaring Kitty could tweet at any moment. And when he tweets, the stock's going to go up, like I said. So I don't want to miss out completely. So right now I'm just waiting to see how price moves. It actually held pretty well, even though it dropped almost 5% today. I think on low volume as well. So if you look here on the daily, you can see we do have earnings coming up. So that's like a concern as well. It could go up or down. I usually don't like holding through earnings, but you can see that there was a bit more volume today, even less the day before, but quite a lot more when it at first broke through this. So maybe this is just a bit of a fake out. We're just cooling off, letting things reset, and then we'll start to make this move back up over 35.58. That would be a strong point for, okay, I can safely enter into this position and just cut out again if it breaks below. But then you have a bunch of targets above that, right? This move to 43.52 could happen in a very short period of time. And then if he tweets from there, this thing could definitely push over $100. But my guess would be like somewhere in that 65 to 75 range. If he tweets, I think that's like a safe area to start taking profit. And just depending on how much it gets picked up into the overall mainstream media. And, you know, if there's a lot of buyers, then it can definitely continue to gamma squeeze this stock. On top of that, though, let's just take a quick look at the flow today. So there was actually a lot of kind of a mixed amount of flow today. And this shows the highest volume contracts on Unity. There was a lot of put buyers that you can see here. You can see that the bid-ask volume is 98% green, which means that the majority of this position was actually bought to open. So that's a bearish bet. But after further review on that 33.5, this was actually a somewhat neutral position. They sold 38 calls, bought the 33.5 puts, and sold the 31 puts. And this is kind of like them wanting to keep Unity between $31 and $38. So that's like somewhat of a neutral position. They actually profit, and these are all just for Friday. So it's really not that big of a deal. Even if Unity goes back down to $31, I might start scaling into some really far out the money call contracts for maybe like September, November, December, even January. Because as long as he stays in that January 30th position, there's a real solid chance that he could tweet. And so I'm just kind of waiting to see how that plays out for Unity. So we'll see how things go. I would like to see this trend line break. We have this little downtrend going. If this breaks, I might start buying some shorter dated call contracts and then hope this can get some momentum and start pushing again before earnings. Next, let's take a look at Zeta. Zeta is one that we've been looking at for a couple weeks now. It did have this breakout. It's on large volume. They do have earnings coming up. This stock has sold quite a bit since November when that short report was published. And it's been in this downtrend. It is growing a lot, over 35%. AI is becoming a bigger deal. A lot of people are just picking up AI solution, business solution products that are automated. And I think Zeta is actually positioned really well in the marketplace to take advantage of that. And so I think Zeta can have not only just like a move from a fundamental perspective if you wanted to just buy shares for the long term, but I do think that at least short term, with all the volume that was shown up here, it's consolidating over this other trend line breakout. It held this gap, and now it's pushing to the upside. It's also getting picked up on socials. And so I think we're looking at a few different levels here. We really want it to just hold 15. If it can hold 15, you can see historically when price holds $15, we do have that strong bounce to the upside, right? So we have this move that plays out continuously historically. Even here in the past, around that $16 level, that's also like a bounce spot for the stock, as well as like a level of resistance. And that's what's happening right now, right? We're like kind of hitting around this $16 level. As long as we're over 15, that's good. Really, we got to hold over this $16 level, and then we can make this push to around $18 per share. And then really what I'm looking for is this low volume node at 1956. That's really like my first profit taking level. So we'll see how price goes here in the next couple weeks. But we are in short dated call contracts as well as September dates if you want to be a bit safer. I think anything from like $17.5 to $20 call contracts through the end of the year are very solid, because I think at some point this upper trend line that you're seeing here is going to be tested, and that's around $22 to $23. But like I said, anything goes on earnings, so you can definitely try to maybe spread out of your position, take profit before then. Just be safe, because you never know. Maybe leave some extra positions in there just in case it does rip to the upside and break over this. But if this level breaks, obviously this will be like a profit-taking level at first. But if it breaks over and holds this level, this thing could get squeezing pretty quickly. And then it has this big open gap that's up here that it might come and test. But that wouldn't happen until, months from now, maybe even next year, just depending on how earnings go. Then let's just take a look at NEO, our biggest gain today. This one has just been on an absolute tear. China's been doing a lot to help support EV manufacturers, and NEO is one. So it's been benefiting greatly from that. It had this bull flag breakout over 353, and since then it just pushed up, retested, pushed again. So you had this like 1, 2, 3 wave into this gap. So it filled one gap. Now it's starting to fill this gap. This 514 level is an area of resistance. We'll see if price can push over that. But yeah, really strong reversal. We'll see how earnings go. I think I might actually end up holding this stock for a bit longer, seeing if we can actually turn this into like a winning position. Right now we are green on it in both portfolios, but I would like to see this actually start to push maybe $6, $7, even $8. But a lot of that depends on the fundamentals of the business as well as how China performs. And then Apple, I'm so bullish on Apple just because I know that, all these companies are building AI products, but at some point they have to go somewhere. And Apple owns like the best products and services. They have the best brand. People are very loyal customers to Apple. And once they figure out this AI problem, and whether that's buying a large language model or partnering with someone, once they're able to do that, Apple's going to test this upper trend line at some point, but more than likely it will follow all the other Mag 7 stocks. It will eventually break out this downtrend at some point. I don't know where on this line it will break, but at some point it will. And I definitely see this stock pushing into 230 all the way up to 237. That's where, you can see all these moves that have happened in the past on Apple. And if it can get over that, then obviously we have a shot again at 250, 260 and all-time highs. So really strong position here. We broke out of this recent downtrend. We consolidated on the hourly chart. We broke out of this downtrend. We retested a bunch over here. You can see 1, 2, 3. Had a couple different fake outs. We held this position, and now we're pushing to the upside, trying to get through all these levels. This big gap remains open. So you want to see Apple move very quickly into this 223 zone. It's probably going to happen sometime next week, unfortunately. So I'm probably going to have to try to take profit a bit sooner on my call spreads around 217. Hopefully that move can play out tomorrow. So we'll see, and just keep an eye on Apple, because I do think all-time highs is inevitable. Then what else? Grab's kind of like in this weird breakout. It's had a lot of ups and downs after hours. Here on the hourly chart, you can see that if I bring in the extended hours, it actually broke above on some news that they were improving their back-end operations. And that had a really strong bullish move, which honestly is not like that significant of news. They're just like choosing a different software, and that will help them scale their business. But nonetheless, it had this nice little gap up after hours, but then it just sold off completely back to flat. Grab just seems like this stock that just moves really slow, and I'm just waiting for it to get over this gap. If it can get over this gap, hold over 567, that's really constructive and healthy. because this stock has a 4-year bottoming pattern with a 9-month pattern on top of that. And now that it's finally starting to break out, you're going to see a lot of chop here, but at some point it's going to just rip to the upside to 663, 763, even potentially up to $10. You can see that there's no volume here. So price, it's like trying to discover, right? Price discovery, buyers and sellers, once it's over that price, it doesn't have like any frame of reference because there's less volume that was traded here at these levels when it's sold off way back in 2021. And so it's going to move very quickly in that area and try to find the fair value of grab. So they have like $11-12 billion cash position. It's trading at $22 billion. So over 50% of that is cash. So every share that you buy is really like spending $3.60 for the enterprise value of the business. So overall, great long-term buy. Can't really go wrong here. Just buy shares and leaps, wait for the thing to go up, and then maybe you just wheel the stock after that. And then Tesla, this one is really interesting. I'm kind of torn on what I should do here, but I know it's going to probably go up to the upside. If it dumps on earnings, I'm okay with that. I just need to like see what Elon has to say. But I drew this pattern back on July 10th, and you can see that price has really followed exactly to a T this move. It's going to try to push up to this 344 level. Maybe we'll get there tomorrow before earnings. Honestly, this is a really big bullish consolidation pattern. It had like a couple little fake breakdowns. That's why we bought back in once it started to push back over this level. Now it's back over this green trend line, and then it has a real strong move because this was considered a false breakdown below this recent uptrend, and it reclaimed this uptrend. So that's all really bullish, and that's why it's making this move to the upper end of this upper trend line, right? So you have this like wedge that's forming. It false breaks down, then it re-enters. Now it's more than likely that bulls are winning, and you're going to push it to that upper end of the trend line. It's the same thing that actually happened with Ethereum. You can go chart that one on the daily and see why I was so bullish on Ethereum. It's really the same exact setup. And obviously, Tesla wants to merge everything, wants to do Optimus, robots, at full self-driving, put Grok inside of all of their products. And if they can do that successfully, then, this is really going to be this downtrend, reversal, consolidation pattern coming from an uptrend, consolidating here, and then you're going to see a push to the upside as well. 365 has been a key important area, that 360 to 365 zone. If we can break through that supply zone, then you're going to see a really strong push, 400, 420, everyone's favorite number. We're probably going to make a move there. So that's really what I'm looking for. Obviously, there's all this other shit going on with like Webull, just real quick, when you have an IPO and it rallies to the upside, you have this big gap that forms. I'm going to just put you guys on some game right now because this is a repeatable, winnable strategy where you can make 100, 200% on a position. So Webull breaks out. A bunch of people chase this. Some people make money. A lot of people lose money. The price comes back down, and look where it goes, right? So it comes back down. It hits like the lower end of this candle. It completely fills this gap. It bounces from that level. There's like another little resistance within this gap that's like lower volume. Then it comes back down, and it eventually like kind of settles for a period of time. You can see that the low here was on Friday before it took off around like $10. It comes back down here right around $10. It holds that level. Now, the key level is actually in two different places. It's like where the candle started here and where this candle bounced. And that was like around 1263. So price came up and it pushed over 1263. It came back down. It held that level. And now you're starting to see a push to the upside. But because there's low volume here and this is a big gap that's wide open, price will likely try to retrace a lot of this, right? So you had like the IPO lockup period end. Now you're starting to see some volume pick up here. It broke through, it settled, and then now it's starting to push again. And you're seeing this on a really high volume. And those are all basically confirmation that there's a lot of interest and the stock's going to start pushing to the upside. And because there's not a lot of historical price data and volume at certain levels, price is going to move very quickly. And that's what we're seeing here on the chart, right? Like it moved up 16%. They diluted shareholders over here, but it's not immediately dilutive. And so price kind of stabilized. It formed a flag. It broke out here. We started entering into more contracts, and then it started pushing to the upside. It filled this gap. It filled this gap. And it's pretty simple, right? Like price is going to likely push to that $26 level. You also have this level around $22, and then you also have this level around $18.70, right? So price is rejected there. It found support here. It's started the gap. The whole gap is through here, and then there's even an extended level at 33. So really you're just in this position, mostly short dated stuff, because once it starts squeezing, it has more of like a velocity behind it. That's when all the interest is happening. So ideally this can push to 19. We'll take profit there. 22, we'll take profit there. 26, we'll definitely take profit there. We'll probably be out of that position completely by the time it gets there anyway, and we'll be up like 300%. So really easy on IPOs, honestly. Like after the initial move is played out, price settles, and then you can just run it back. And that's how I knew like GameStop was a buy at 10 last year, because it was like the same level when price squeezed all the way back in 2021. So like after the squeeze in 2021, I knew that at some point GameStop would trade 10 again. And when it traded 10 again, it was the perfect entry point for that second move. So like I predicted GameStop would squeeze years before it actually happened. Right? It broke out here, it retested there, it came back down, it hit that level, and it exploded to the upside. So like understanding technical analysis, which is really just like memory, right? There's memory built into the chart at certain levels. People like to do business there. And if you know those levels, you have an edge in the market. And, you know, that's pretty much almost all of trading. Right there is just really knowing the charts extremely well, because in trading, it's not so much about like buying, hold. Obviously, you can do all that. But in trading, a lot of it is just about understanding the technicals, because you're trying to predict price movement, and price can be wrong in the short term. In the short term, stocks are a voting machine, and in the long term, they're a weighing machine. I think that's Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, one of their quotes. But nonetheless, that's really all I have here to cover today. We're going to just get after it. Make sure you guys join the Discord. I do post everything in there. And I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a long one. Maybe all the value was at the end. So I hope you watched to the end. Drop a comment if you did. And I'll see you in the next video, guys. Peace.